My name is Denise Stokes. I'm an AIDS activist and also a spoken word artist. I'm a spoken word artist. I use my voice to paint my words, to tell stories of where I've been and what I've gone through in this world. Because I might be a sister with AIDS, but that's not all I am. I got the wealth of nations in my head and the hope of heaven in my hands. Life is a vast palette of colors, but somehow I gotta make out my dreams, leave something that time can't hold, make sure y'all remember me. A dream of pale yellows for the peace I've yet to find, and shades of gray for the dreams I left behind. Muted purples for the misery and pain, and shocking blues for the driving rain. Vibrant pink for the loves I thought I had, and a touch of brown for the thoughts that make me sad. Maybe a little white for all that's pure, and green for growth, although I'm not sure. A tad of black that seeped into my soul, and oh yeah, a small streak of hope in the shade of gold. How you guys doing? We're talking about AIDS, which means that we're talking about our sexual behaviors, which means that we're talking about our self-esteem and our self-worth. We're talking about ignorance and fear. We're talking about deep denial. We're talking about prejudices against other people. AIDS covers so many things. It's like you can't just talk about it from a clinical standpoint. Yeah, it's a disease. It's a virus. I can clinically tell you how it works, how it breaks down the immune system, how you can and you can't get it. But you know what? Most people know that stuff. That's not the stuff that we tend to ignore. We tend to ignore all of the human elements that come into play when you're talking about the transmission of the disease. We're talking about homophobia, talking about racism, classism, sexism. We're talking about not having the courage to talk to our children in a meaningful way. My mother taught me about sex in such a way that was very cut and dry. She said, don't have it, it's not right, and that was pretty much the end of the conversation. We didn't talk about it in depth. So when I was 13 years old and I left my mother's house and I got raped of my virginity, I didn't know what to do. I have to say some things to people that may not be the most comfortable words they've heard, but they're very necessary. It's not easy for me to stand up there and talk to a mother about her child. That's a touchy thing. But I am somebody's child, and I know part of what went wrong when I was coming of age. My mother had a lot of experiences in her life. She had a lot of wisdom, and she had earned that through pain and through some mistakes in her life. But the way I got the message was, don't do this, don't do that, and don't do this, and everything will be okay. Totally disconnected the human element. What if Mom would have sat me down and talked to me about what it was like to meet my father and that butterfly feeling she had in her stomach and the way she wanted to kiss him right away, or, let me connect to it. So, when we're talking about AIDS, we're talking about all of this stuff. We're talking about the very psyche of other human beings. We protect ourselves in such a way that, we've kind of taught each other not to open up, like don't show your weakness, don't show your, but that's exactly what we need to do to get to the exact nature of what's wrong. If you stop and think, who's having sex? Because all races and classes of people are steadily reproducing, probably means everybody at some point. People with money, without, with education, without, people who are spiritually centered or not, white, black, Asian, Latino, African, Jamaican, everybody. HIV is mainly a sexually transmitted disease. That's basically how it's multiplying. That's basically how the virus is being spread. Nobody is safe from the spread of HIV. And I think until we accept that truth, we're always going to have a problem reaching people. There is no safe place to be. The only safe place to be is out
from under the umbrella of ignorance.
And I didn't talk about what I was feeling. I kept a lot of secrets in my life. So when I got to be about 15, almost 16 years old, I figured, you know what? I'm not a virgin, so maybe I should go ahead and have sex with this guy that I'm really feeling like I'm in love with. And I didn't talk to anybody about this decision. I just kind of made it on my own because I felt like I was mature enough to make that decision. I felt like I knew what I was doing. I felt like he really likes me, I really like him, we're gonna be together. And that's the decision that I made. And ladies and guys, because I'm not leaving you out, that was one of the hardest decisions that I made in my life because I suffered behind something that I thought was gonna be so wonderful, and it wasn't, because I found out something really important that day. Having sex with that guy didn't mean that he loved me. Having sex did not mean that we were in a relationship. Having sex did not mean he was gonna be there next week, next month, next year, or for the rest of my life. It just meant that we had done something physical, and I felt so badly about it. I felt almost as bad as I did the day I was raped, because that was the day I learned that my emotions and my heart and my spirit were connected to my body. And I could not separate them, and the things that I did with my body have an effect on my spirit. They have an effect on my emotions. I didn't know that before. All I knew was that looking cute was a good thing and having boys' attentions was a good thing, and that's what we all wanted. I didn't understand anything beyond that, but I learned the hard way that that's not what it was all about. Being a woman has nothing to do with having sex.
I don't want to know if I'm infected. What good is it going to do me to find out whether I'm infected? Or I'm not at risk. There's no reason for me to be tested. If you've ever had sex in your entire life, ever, even once, you need to be tested for HIV. If you're HIV positive, you need to know. Number one, so that you can take care of you. I've been here for 22 years. It's not because I didn't know what was going on and hid in the closet. It's because I found out what was going on with me, and I took a proactive approach to taking care of myself, learning what kind of therapies were available for me, talking to different doctors to find out what the best thing for me was, and following my health very closely so that I can prolong it as long as possible. You know, that takes effort, and I needed to know my status in order to do that. And also, people need to know their status because, you know what, if you don't know your HIV status, you don't have a right to be having sex. You know? You don't have the right to get with another human being and put their life at risk because you're not responsible enough to go get a test and find out if you're positive.
By the time I was 16 years old, my mother was at her wit's end. She didn't know what to do with me, so she asked me to leave her house. I had no idea what to do. I'm gonna tell you something. Wanting to be grown and being grown is a long way in between those two things. When I found out what being grown was really about, I didn't want to be it. There are some days today that I don't feel like being grown, but unfortunately I am, so I have to be responsible now. I learned about stuff like food and shelter and clothing and education and how do I stay warm and where do I catch the school bus now and who's gonna take me to the doctor and a lot of other stuff that I wasn't ready for. So I was kind of out there on my own. What I decided to do was go into the military because I thought, now, that's something I know how to do because my mother had married a soldier or two in her life during her process of learning how to become a woman. And I knew how to spit shine boots and I knew how to run PT, and I thought if I go into the military, I'll have someplace warm to stay, I'll get an education, and I'll get a chance to grow up so that I can really learn how to take care of myself. Part of going into the military was taking a physical. I wasn't tripped out about the physical, you know, because I ran track a little bit and I played basketball a little bit, not because I was good, just because I was tall. I wasn't good at it though. I did cheerleading, sort of. I never really made it to cheerleader, but I did make the pep squad. They gave me an HTLV3 test. And I was like, okay, I can do that. Take the blood. Take the test. I didn't know what it was. When I was 16 and a half years old, a guy in the military at the Military Entrance Processing Center sat me down in a room and he said to me the most devastating words I've ever heard in my life. He said, "Miss Stokes, you have AIDS."
first found out that I was positive, it was in ancient times. Things were so different. You know, it's still not easy to find out that you're HIV positive, even right now today, even with everything that's available, because it's a devastating diagnosis, don't get me wrong. But to have found out as many years ago as I did, you know, the way I was told was very callous and uncaring. There really were no medicines available. I don't think we had even started to use AZT yet, or we were just now starting to figure out, you know, that we can use that old cancer drug for HIV. Nobody knew how you got it. I mean, you think the general consensus is, you know, that people don't know the exacts about getting infected. Back then, people didn't know anything. It was like pandemonium. You mentioned the word HIV and the room would clear. And I was a 16-year-old girl just getting in touch with the fact that I had my whole life ahead of me. You know, people hated me. People were afraid of me. I was afraid of me, but I couldn't get away from me. You know, I was in my skin and there was no place for me to go. So, you know, what was it like to find out? It was like finding out, that I'd be hated for the rest of my life until I died from a disease that was definitely going to kill me. That's what it was like. It was a very hopeless feeling. And young ladies, all the love that I thought I wanted to feel before that moment, and as much as I wanted to have the guy in my dreams before that moment, and as cute as I thought I was before that moment, and as independent as I thought I was before that moment, I cannot tell you how much that moment changed my life, because AIDS is irreversible. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I was 16. I didn't even know how to vote yet. I wasn't even old enough to buy a beer yet. And they were telling me I was gonna die from a disease that the whole world hated. Now look at me, an HIV positive, black, homeless female. I had a whole lot of negative things going on for me. When I found out I was positive, I didn't really wonder where it came from. I guess because the news of knowing that I had it was so shocking, I couldn't get past that for a while. And I think over a period of months and even years, as I began to come to grips with it and really break it down and think about it, I never was really angry at where it came from, because if it didn't come from one place, it could have come from another. I mean, so who would I have been angry at had it come from the relationship that I was in, the guy that I was with? You know, so the fact that I was raped and got infected, that was just, it rarely happens that way, but I have more trouble dealing with the fact that I was raped of my virginity than I did, you know, adding that other part in, because, you know, and that's the thing when I say it's hard to talk about this sometimes, because you gotta be real honest with yourself. And when I'm real honest with myself, I look at my behavior and I say, okay, I got it the first time out, but I could have gotten it here, this time. So it was really all about my behavior. You know, anybody who has a baby, that's how you get infected. You just looked up and got a baby before you were ready instead of HIV. So it's about taking an honest look at our behavior, and, you know, that way the anger doesn't get misplaced. You know, it's about be responsible for me as much as I can. That doesn't mean other people can't do me wrong. You know, other people aren't responsible for their actions, but what's going to help me in my life is looking at my actions, what I'm responsible for, because that's what I can change. I got drunk. How mature was I? How ready was I to cope with real life? And when I got drunk, I thought it was just something I was going to do for that day, because, you know, I was feeling kind of bad about myself and I needed to kind of get some stuff off my mind, and I didn't know what was next. Because when I got drunk that day, I stayed drunk for the next few years. So I didn't know how to stop getting drunk. I didn't know how to feel what I was feeling. I didn't know how to be who I was. I didn't even know who I was. And drinking gave me this sense of absence. Like, no pain, everything's okay, it's happy, life's a party, don't think about it. Drinking led to smoking weed, and smoking weed led to sniffing cocaine, and sniffing cocaine led to smoking crack. And it happened so fast, and I never, ever, ever thought that I was an addict. Using weed or alcohol, using people, using denial. We use all kinds of things. You know, my thing that I happened to use was drugs. but it's all the same. You know, a destructive behavior or pattern that you're trying to fill a hole with that ain't gonna fill. What's the difference between, you know, me bombarding my lungs with crack and destroying my body, or, you know, you, relationship after relationship after relationship, and you're just wearing and tearing yourself down, you know? We have to look at, you know, like I heard somebody say, a spiritual, someone who I respect spiritual was talking about sin, and they were saying that, you know, sin is sin, and it doesn't matter, you know, if you punch the guy in the jaw, if you killed the guy, sin is sin is sin, and sin is all looked at the same by God. And so when I take a look at destructive behaviors, for me, it's like they're all the same. If you're tearing yourself down, you're tearing yourself down. So why drugs? For me, that was my mistake. You know, that was my, let me try to fix me. Let me try not to feel what I'm feeling. What's yours? And did it really have a better effect on your life than crack had on mine? Left us both empty, hurt, and still looking for the answer, right? By God's grace and some footwork, you know, some footwork. And when I say footwork, I mean that emotional hard work that I do on myself every day. You know, the way I sit down and ask myself, what are your motives? What are your intentions? What are you doing? Are you doing what you need to be doing? Or are you doing what's easy? Are you really trying to get better? What is it that you're not looking at, unwilling to look at? Are you really ready to change and grow? You know, I ask myself some tough questions on a daily basis, and I try to stay on top of things, because spiritual growth is what it's all about for me. You know, so it's about me learning how to listen to God, learning how to communicate with, you know, God, learning how to allow my spirit to grow, because, you know, my weaknesses, you know, my flaws, they'll take over on any given day. You know, it's easy to do what's easy. It's hard to do what's right. And my goal is, as much as possible, to do what's right. It is a miracle that I survived all those times I got beat up, and all those times I was hungry, and all those times I was cold, and all those times I put God knows what kind of drug on that pipe and put a match to it and pulled it into my lungs, not knowing what it was going to do to me. God only knows how I survived that. It came a point in my life where I was so mad and I was just so hopeless that I thought I would just commit suicide, because AIDS was not killing me fast enough. Life isn't about collecting things, titles, cars, relationships. Life is about finding out what it is of importance that you have to give and sharing that unselfishly with the next person. If I don't have anything quality to give, I need to get to work, because we all have gifts. We all have precious gifts. Some of us just have them hidden under so much stuff. And that self journey is about going in and finding that stuff, getting rid of it. I'm a work in progress, but what I have to give is honest, and I feel it, and I'm willing to give it. So that is the reward too. You know, think about where I came from in my life. You know, homeless, HIV positive, on drugs, no self-respect. Someone like me to be able to look at those issues, and each one of those issues give it the proper amount of attention and work to make it better, to be better, and to end up actually having something of quality to share with another human being. I'm so rich. I'm so wealthy. And I'm so humbled that God loved me that much to give me that opportunity. That's amazing. What's going on in our communities is we're so busy judging each other that we're letting each other die. We're so busy pointing the finger at other people that we're not looking at what's going on in our own houses, and our children are dying. I know people that are so concerned about somebody being gay over here that their own 13-year-old daughter is infected with HIV. They didn't even know she was having sex. I wouldn't worry about what he or she was doing so much as I would worry about what am I telling my children to sustain them so that they have a fighting chance. You know? I don't believe in judging people. I just don't believe it's my place. I believe that it's my place to love absolutely everybody. You know, who am I to tell you who to sleep with? What I can tell you is love yourself. Make that decision from a very, very, understand that it's a very important decision to make. Make sure that the person you're with is somebody that you care about, that you really want to be with. And try to make some kind of commitment to each. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what kind of relationship, if it's a healthy relationship. That's what I'm more concerned about. You know, people being honest with each other and being fulfilled in what they do instead of continuing to have them run from relationship to relationship, trying to get what they need and it ain't there. You know, if you can't help the situation, don't hurt it with hatred. It's 100% preventable because every single person on the face of this earth that's HIV negative can remain that way for the rest of their life. You gotta do something to get infected. HIV don't just come and find you. You gotta make a decision to have sex or share a needle with someone who's infected to get infected. And because you don't know who's infected, that means you have to make a decision to have sex or share a needle. Scary, huh? Because most of us will have sex at least once before we die. Which means that we have to start asking some serious questions like, where you been? With who? How long? Why? And can I see your HIV test? You know, man, we can go to dinner and candlelight dinner and go to the movies and go shopping and spend all that money and all that time and all that effort to get the sex. But we don't want to go check and see if the sex is healthy. That's a trip. A free HIV test. Free. We don't want to do that though, but we'll do everything else. All of that pretty stuff don't mean nothing if you're both HIV positive now. You don't go to the clinic now, you go to the clinic later. For real. You can do something as personal and private and privileged with another human being and share your body with them, but you can't have the conversation first. That's immature. I don't care how old you are, that's childish. A lot of people aren't mature enough to have sex. Sex is serious. It's a difficult subject. It's a serious decision. You know, I'll be 35 years old at the end of this month, and it's still a heck of a thought process that goes into me deciding to be with somebody. That's a forever thing. I don't get to undo that decision once I make it. You know, a lot of us need to just slow down and take our time just because we're grown. And, you know, some of us aren't, but even those of us who are of age, just because we're grown don't mean we should do it. I know that almost everybody here knows somebody with AIDS. We're talking about an illness that came out of left field. One day nobody had it. It's 2004. 47 million people in this world have AIDS. Do you know how many people that is? All my talks and what I do, my main message really is to try to get people to stop and think. I want people to think about what it is that they're doing. What kind of effect is it having on my life? What kind of effect does it have on other people? I want people to think about what their needs are and how they're trying to get them met. And I know we live in a society of quick fixes, everything instant, everything happens right now. But we really need to slow down and think about what it is that we need, you know, at the core of us, at the center of us. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? And is it really, you know, having the kind of effect that I want it to have? People get sick of hearing about HIV, and they think they can turn it on and turn it off like the TV. But it doesn't matter whether you're looking at it or not, it's growing. If everybody would look at it and keep their eyes focused on it, it wouldn't grow anymore. That's the funny thing, that we turn our heads away because it's ugly and we don't want to see it and we're afraid. But that's what gives it its life. That's how it multiplies so fast. We need to embrace those people who are positive. It is a hell of a thing to live with a disease that people fear and hate. Oh, like I wish people would wake up. You know, I'm a poet. I love gardening. I'm an organic gardener. I like to grow flowers and vegetables from seed. I'm a handy woman. I love working on my house. I'm a woodworker. I love making things with wood, like dog houses and bookshelves and all kinds of things. I am a shopper. I love finding a great deal. I love going to the park. I love dogs. I love just sitting and chatting about what's going on. There are so many people in this world that are missing out on people like me because of the content of our blood. That is so ridiculous, to miss out on sharing the lives of incredible human beings because they have a disease. That is so crazy. You know, what kind of world do we live in? We got a lot of waking up to do. See, HIV is making us look at all these things. We need to take a look at all these things. There are 10 million reasons to hate. There's only one good reason to love. It's because we should love. That's simpler for me. I think I'll just stick with that. But those people who miss out on my life and the lives of other people who are HIV positive, that's what they're doing. They're missing out. We're not missing out because we live in ours. You know, we're supporting each other. And there are a lot of people who support us. It's not the way it used to be. It's gotten a whole lot better. And those who still don't want to be human, they got the problem. We don't. You know, I have a disease. They have a deficiency. My name is Denise Stokes. I've been fortunate enough to have lived with HIV for 22 years thus far. It's been a wonderful, marvelous, beautiful, beautiful journey. But if I should happen not to see a lot more life, what I want people to remember is that life is about love, life is about honesty, and everything is about God.